Oh, good evening, Your Majesty. How are you doing today? Oh, you're doing wonderful. Oh, wonderful. Yes, I do. Yes, Goo Goo Gaga is correct. Absolutely. Yes. You are maybe about 1 year old, and I have to say I'm quite impressed with your development. Yes, I have been watching you mainly because I am your tutor. So, of course, I'm here and I am going to teach you the alphabet. It's something that everybody needs to know. You need to know. You need to be literate. It's merely something that, we should at least get you familiar with it. Unfortunately, a lot of people teach the alphabet in ways that I think are a little bit rudimentary. So I'm going to try and approach this topic in a more intellectual way. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that I'm going to give you the context of every letter, give you some thoughts and feelings about each one, and tell you which ones are important and which ones aren't, as well as directions for how to write each letter. If you do not follow the directions, then it will cause trouble in the future. Okay? So, that is mainly going to be it. So, is there any questions that you have? Yes, Goo Goo? Yeah, Gaga. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, no questions. All right, well. This is the entire alphabet right here. The English alphabet. Of course, we would have the English alphabet. We would not dare teach you anything else. So, you are the king after all. So, regardless, let's go ahead and get started here. So, this is the first letter here. Do you know what this letter is? It is the letter A, right? It's the letter A. Now, the letter A is interesting because it's a word and a letter. A can be an article. And what's interesting about it is that, to be honest, A really reads as a very, very high, strong letter. You do not want to cross the letter A. The letter A is very tightly wound, let's say. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we move forward. Each letter is going to have a certain personality to it, and you're going to need to understand each one if you're going to learn the English language, because it's absolutely essential. So that's letter A. Over here we have the directions. So, how to write the letter A is you want to start with the outside, right? So you want to start and you want to go like this. And then you want to do a cross in the middle. That's a capital A. This course is not going to go over lowercase letters. It's only going to go over capital letters, okay? Do you not know what the difference between capital letters and lowercase letters are? My word, the state of your education is quite dire. We must continue. Okay, so next up we have the letter B. This one right here. What do you think of that one? Yes, it is a bit softer. It is softer. Yes, it's a bit provocative. Yes. This letter in particular, I would say, evokes imagery of softness as well as sensuality. Yes, this one in particular is very sensual, but not in a crude way, very romantic. It's a very romantic letter. Yes, so let's go ahead and talk about how to write a said letter, okay? So if you want to evoke the proper romanticism of the letter B, what you would then need to do is you'd start with a line, and then you'd do 2 semicircles. That's going to create the nice letter for you, right? So, line and 2 semicircles. Nice and easy. Okay, so next up we have C. What do you think of the letter C? What impression do you get of the letter C? Gaga Goo Goo. Interesting. I do think, I do pick up what you're putting down. To be honest, I will say the letter C is a bit devious. It's a bit mischievous. Why do I say that? It's because it doesn't really know what it wants to be, right? The letter C can sound like it can sound like k. It can also sound like s. It can also sound like ch if an H comes right after it. So it really is trying to trick you, and that is really the sort of mischievous thing that a letter, wants to do, right? It doesn't want you to be able to read it. So this letter here, this letter C, very, very mischievous. Okay, all right. So this letter's pretty easy to write down, but in terms of directions, you want to start from the top. Okay? When you are addressing other princes and princesses, kings and queens, you always want to start from the top. You do not want to start with the rebel at the bottom. Okay? So you start from the top and you end at the bottom. You start at the top and you end at the bottom. Okay? Alright, so next up, let's go with D. What do you think of the letter D? Good, yes, it is very similar to B, right? This is two semicircles, this is one big semicircle. What does that make you feel? It's a bit imposing, isn't it? Yes, the letter D is incredibly imposing. To be honest, the letter D is not trying to trick you. It's very in your face. And, you can find the letter D anywhere and everywhere because everybody wants to show you their D. So this is very much a imposing and quite frightening letter. But no need to be afraid. So long as you carry self-defense equipment, I think that the letter D will have no harm. And what is the self-defense equipment? Education and knowledge, of course. So, how to write the letter D? The letter D is very similar to the letter B. A line and one semicircle. A line, and notice from top to bottom, and one semicircle. You do not want to start from bottom to top. It's just inaccurate. Okay, so next up, let's go to E. E is interesting, right? Because this letter, I would say, it's not devious, but it's a bit shy. That's the right word. The letter E is a bit shy. It likes to hide in places. It likes to, it doesn't want to make itself known, but its presence is felt. And that's something to keep in mind whenever you see the letter E. So, how do you want to write a letter that is not wanting to be seen? You want to be firm. You want to be dramatic, right? You want to write and then very specific, right? So top to bottom and then very good. Very, very good. Okay. How are you feeling so far? I see your companion has graced us with a visit. Yes? Very good. Very good. Okay. Moving on, we've got F. F is very similar to E, but very different. They're like twins, right? This is like fraternal twins out of the same mother, but incredibly different. F is standard. F is standard. I think that's if you were to find your average, plain Joe, or, Jane Doe, Joe, what's the other word? What's Jane Doe, but the other Joe Doe? No, that's not correct. But if you were to find, like a Joseph Smith of some kind, F would be that kind of person, very run-of-the-mill, very vanilla. So practically boring, So let's go ahead and show you how to write this letter. You always start from top to bottom again. Very boring. Very boring. To be honest, we don't want to talk about F anymore. Right, so next up is G. G is honestly kind of an interesting one, right? It's not, it's a little devious, you could go G, you could go G, right? Because that's how it's pronounced sometimes. But unlike C, it's not really trying to be mischievous. I think it's a bit dopey, right? And because of its dopiness, it doesn't really know what it wants to do. And so, sometimes it feels like a G, sometimes it feels like a G, and you don't really understand the difference, but you just follow along. You go with the flow, and that's the kind of letter that G is. So, if you are to write G, you kind of just want to go with the flow. You kind of want to just go with the flow, and then you end it, right? It's sort of like a circular motion followed by an arrow, right? Right here, almost like that. Very simple, but very laid back. Very laid back. Okay. Next up, we have H. H or H. I prefer H, to be honest, or the dreaded H. This letter is, let's just say, very, very, very important because it is present even when it doesn't need to be. It is always watching. This letter is like an assassin, always present, always awaiting to strike. So this letter, to be honest, at the start of a word, pretty simple, right? But if it's in the middle of the word, now it gets a little confusing. Are there vowels before it and after it? Is there a G, right? Because if there's a G with the H, then that spells trouble, right? So you really need to keep in mind that this, it's not all that it pretends to be. So you just got to keep an eye out. So to write this very secretive letter, you want to contain it, right? And then you want to strike it. You want to contain the threat. And then you want to strike. Okay? All right. Next up, we've got I. I is very simple. I. It's just I. I'll be honest. It is also a little boring, kind of like F, but it does have something going for it. It is a word in and of itself. So no matter what, it deserves a little bit of respect. If F is boring and sort of fades into the background because you really just don't want to look at it, I is almost like a respectable colleague. One that you don't really want to invite to your dinner party, but you send the invite anyway, knowing that they're going to say no. They're over there, they're doing their thing, and you're doing your thing, and you're both happy for each other, so long as you don't exist within the same spheres. So, how would you like to write the letter I? I can tell you, but at this point, I think you should be able to, guesstimate. I see. Goo goo gaga, of course. So, what we're going to have to do here is start from the top and go bottom, top to bottom. And then if you feel like it, you can do little lines at the top and bottom. If you just do this line, that's perfectly fine. But then there's a little bit of a question about whether that's a lowercase l or an uppercase I. And let me just say, just because we haven't talked about lowercase and uppercase, and in particular I'm not talking about lower cases, It doesn't mean that it won't be confusing for people. And you definitely don't want people to think that your nice, upstanding I is another letter. So, something to keep in mind. Okay. Next, we have this row here. We're going to go with J. J is interesting. Not devious. Definitely not boring. J is a bit. It's underrated. But J in particular, it sort of gives the vibe of sort of a rocker. Like a guitarist in a rock band that's grown really old, and nobody knows about them anymore, but they still go on, they still put on shows, they still do what they need to do. It almost gives the essence of the lost glory days. That is this kind of letter. J is a letter that, when you see it in a word, you sort of like, oh, I sort of forgot you exist. And how novel, so it's honestly a very fun letter, especially, if you're a groupie, very fun letter. So, directions, very simple. It's like an I, right? You bring it all the way down, but then you just do a little hook, right? And you come down, they just do a little hook. And this little hook here is what makes it different, right? So you need to keep that in mind. Next up, we have K. Now, K is the partner to C. How so? Another mischievous one. And it's not mischievous in pronunciation. Absolutely not. What it's mischievous in is the fact that it's such a hard letter, K, and yet it can sometimes just not be pronounced at all. Night, Knight. Why is the K there? Honestly, it beggars belief. And if I'm honest, I do think that the K has a little bit of a thing for N. And so it just likes to be there sometimes. It's really something that I don't think that they're mischievous on purpose, nor do I think that they're dopey. I just think that they're infatuated with the letter of the day, right? They're constantly chasing, the newest, the hottest letter on the block, and then they find themselves in words that they really shouldn't be. So it's just something, that you have to understand. But to move on, how to write it. You always start with this one, right? And then you go down at a diagonal, and then you bring it back. It's almost like an arrow pointing this way. So you go down, and just like that. Very simple. Absolutely. Okay. So next we're going to go with L, M, N, O, and P all together. Why am I bringing them together? This is a clique. L, M, N were friends together at first because there were three consonants that just, found themselves near each other in the line. O is a vowel that sort of found itself amidst sort of enemy lines, right? And it just didn't know what to do, right? So it's befriended N and P. So then you had LMN and NOP. NOP then decided to merge with LMN to become LMNOP. N being, of course, the diva of the group, the one that everybody is connected to. Without N, this all falls apart. Okay? So, I understand this is going a bit too fast, but you have to understand the dynamics of the letters. Otherwise, you'll never understand the English language. So, LMNOP, a very important click. The only click within the English language. So, to honor them, we'll just tell you how to write each one. So, for L, be like simple, down and to the right. M is a bit thorny, right? So you want to go up M is interesting, right? Because this is the only one that you start from the bottom. And I think because it's in a click, it hasn't drawn attention to itself. So you can, right? Of course, you can start from the top and then come back. I think that is the more professional, the more royal way to do it. However, you don't want to show respect to the letter M, not when it's in a clique like this, so exclusive. So, you're not a part of this clique, Your Highness. So, anyway, next is N, and N is similar. You can do a line, and then you continue it. You go diagonal, and then another line. Or you can do one line, and then connect it. Or you can start from the bottom here. See, the click is the only time when you would start from the bottom because you don't want to show them respect. O, of course, is simply a circle. Now you can opt for a pretty perfect circle, or you can go for more of an oval shape. Or, if you're feeling fancy, you can go for sort of a shape that starts in the center here and goes all the way around. It does end up looking like a kidney bean, but to be honest, who doesn't like a kidney bean? And lastly, P. P is from the top to the bottom, and then just that lovely half semicircle. Oh, a semicircle, not a half semicircle. That would be a quarter semicircle. That would be a quarter circle. All right, so next let's move on to Q. Q is a bit angry. It's a bit bitter, right? Because it doesn't like that this clique is so near them, right? It's like if this was a neighborhood, these are all friends, and they've excluded Q. So Q doesn't like to show itself in any words, to be honest. It's very, very, restrained. It stays away from the drama, and it just seethes in anger. So Q, if you want to draw Q, it would be like O, right? You'd do this sort of circle. However, if you're feeling rageful, you just cross all the way across. So you do the circle, and then you just do the whole cross right across, look right through it, almost like you're decapitating the O. Another way to do it is to do the circle, and then just to do a nice little notch. That's when you're feeling a bit more reserved, when your anger's a bit tempered that day. Okay. Next is R. Now, R is really interesting because R is one of the only diverse letters among this group. It comes, R can be pronounced with the roll or without the roll. Personally, I like it with the roll, but for your purposes, Your Highness, I do think without the roll, it would be more appropriate. So, let's go ahead and tell you how to write this diverse letter. Very simple. Up, top to bottom, semicircle, diagonal line. You see how it's kind of like a P, the B and the D, but then it also has this diagonal like the K. I'll be honest, the diversity of the letter R has brought about a little bit of complications for it because it's, tangential to Q, but Q is really reserved and is kind of worried about R. Like, oh, who is this R? And R right next to S it doesn't really want to make many friends. So R is kind of outgoing, but the society that R lives in leaves it in a precarious position. Okay, so next is S. S is sort of a diva, and in the best way possible. S is incredibly popular, walks around with no care in the world because everybody wants to be S's friend, and there's a reason why S is unbothered by this clique over here. Because the clique wants S to join, but they have, if S were to join, then they'd have to contend with Q and R. And they don't want Q and R, No, they just want S. But S is happy with where S is because S is surrounded by the entire alphabet and loves it. So S is popular. And to write the letter S, there is no line, if you notice, right? It's just simple, easy. Just from the top to the bottom, you're just doing 2 semicircles in opposite directions connected. Yes? Yes? Okay. T. The dreaded T. Why is it dreaded, you say? T is a letter with a lot of baggage. The reason? Have you read the Bible? They have taken this letter and used it. Now, we will not take the associations of other people's to the personalities of the letter itself. However, the fact that T is so popular in many, many different contexts, sort of infamously popular, let's say, makes it instead of, you know how S is very popular, but it doesn't go to S's head. T, on the other hand, has a really big head. T thinks that they are everything and that they are, in fact, absolutely above all other letters except for S, which is why they're able to share, being next to each other. So, to write the letter T, you go. That's the lowercase. This is the first time I've shown you the lowercase. And that's the uppercase. Okay? You see how big this top line is? That's how big its ego is. Okay, so next is U, right? U is a letter that is also a word. What do we say about letters that are also words? Like I, right? Like A. They're sort of self-sufficient, right? There is a bit of respect to that. But unfortunately for the letter U, it's a faker. It's fake. U isn't a word. U sounds like a word, but it's not a word in and of itself. And so, unlike I and A, it has been cast off. It has been, stripped of all titles and all reputation. And now, after years of begging on the street and being sort of absolutely, covered in mud, it has now reached the point where it can be within this. Now, within this, of course, like array of letters, the alphabet. Now, of course, T is not very happy that U is right next to it. Of course not. So U is trying to keep a low profile, doesn't want to be cast off again, so it's incredibly insecure. Incredibly insecure. Prozac might help, but, we shall see. So how to write the letter U? Very simple. Sort of take that semicircle concept, turn it so that the bottom is down here, and you start from just extend to the top, right? Precisely. Now, what about V? V is a letter that, but to be honest, it looks a little bit intimidating. It's like a spike. But it's actually a little bit of a sweetie. It's a sweetheart, really. And to be honest, the only reason that U has survived so long is because V is right next to it. Because I'll be honest, V is, just warm hugs come from V, right? It's not, you don't see V very often. V has a very, very good work-life balance. And so V, when V shows itself, it's like, wow, V, it's been so long. Oh, I miss you so much. But V will never stay for very long and will not be present very frequently because V doesn't want to be caught up in the drama. V just wants to provide comfort and care. So that's V. Then we'll start and do that and that. very simple. At this point, I think that the directions can be self-evident, so I'm going to keep doing them for you, but I will let you know if there's anything a little bit interesting. W. How do you feel about W? What do you get from W? W is the love child of U and V. Don't believe me? Just look at it. Look at it. It's absolutely the love child. So it was adopted. It sort of went away. Grew up in a different alphabet. But then when it came back, it wanted to be near its family. That at the very least, that's the rumor going around. And I buy it. I understand it. But, to each their own. You don't need to believe it. But W is to be written similar to V, except twice. Or similar to U, but twice. So really it's in the name, W. Right? So you can go like so. Or you can go like so. So, do you see what I mean? It's either two V's or two U's. That connection's there. Okay. Next up we have X. Now here I want to talk about X, Y, and Z. They're not a clique per se, because they're not exactly friends, but let's just say that maths have in fact made X, Y, and Z a little bit of pop stars. X in particular, solve for X, that is so famous. That X, the royalties that X gets, to be honest, is incredibly, sky high. Y and Z, they're there, they get their own royalties, but it's not the same for X. Now, X being the sort of unproblematic communist a letter that it is, it shares the wealth with Y and Z, right? It doesn't want Y and Z to sort of fall by the wayside. So Y and the three of them end up having their own separate wealth. And so they sort of exist in their own bubble where, they don't exist in a lot of words, but when they're there, it's not even novel. It's honestly shocking, right? So X would be like so. Y would be similar to X, but not all the way across. You see that? Absolutely. And Z would be, Z or Z, would be like so. Catch my drift? Absolutely. Now, if your question is, why does X only share their wealth with Y and Z and not with the rest? It's merely because the rest don't want X's wealth because they see it as charity and they're a bit too proud. X has offered, but they don't want it. So what can they do? All right, so that is the full alphabet for you. Now, Your Highness, I expect you to understand all the complex dynamics of all the letters and their relationships between each other by the next time we meet, okay? Give me a confirmation. Goo goo gaga, of course. Wonderful. You have done splendidly. Now, I will give you this for you to understand it and to learn it. And if you have any questions, please get in contact with me because to be honest, I do think that my alphabetical research into the dynamics of every letter, I think has proven to be not a popular topic. Okay? Okay then. Well, I hope you have a wonderful night. Goo gaga to you, and I will see you later. Okay then. Bye-bye.